the stories you will tell your grandchildren. When you were a kid, holograms were a thing of future. Right? When you were a kid, you could video chat with your friends across the world. When you were a kid, the student's job description was just study, study, study. When you were a kid, you worked with this amazing device every day, which is called pen. Your life is going to go through many, many changes in the next 20 to 30 years. And these changes will define your stories. These changes will define or change the epic story of your generation. Here is my story. Short and simple. Throughout my life, there have been many changes, and that actually has defined what I am today. When I was in school, I changed my medium of instruction halfway through schooling from Hindi to English. Many of you may reflect back if you have changed from Chinese to English here. When I was in college, I changed my study discipline from physics to computer science. Half of my degrees are in physics and rest in computer science. I changed my home from India to Singapore, and it's been 24 years. The changes I have gone through have defined again, my perspectives, the way I look at things, the way I talk to people, the way I know about myself, my friendships, my relationships, and these are very important to me. These changes have given me a beautiful web of little things which I share with my children as stories. I believe that change is very unique to any individual, and it's personal as well. I grew up in India. I was in University of Delhi for my master's in physics and PhD in computer science. I spent about 10 years in the same university. I was very fond of Star Trek, which is the predecessor of, what do you have now? Star Wars, right? It's the key reason why I pursued physics and computer science. All the technologies I watched in Star Trek were somewhere deep in my heart and in my dreams all the time. When I was doing my master's in high energy physics, I was introduced to computers. And Fortran was the first language I learned. I used IBM 360, a mainframe computer, and I used punch cards to write my program. Now, I actually did not see or interact with IBM 360. I interacted through punch cards. So I would prepare a deck of cards as a program, and I would take it to the room behind which was the IBM 360 housed, and I would pass my deck at the counter, and they would take it from me and they would give me results a day later. So it was nothing instantaneous back then. And that's how I learned. So I dreamt deep in my heart. I was doing physics and I kept dreaming, when would I see IBM 360? When would I interact with it? There was no keyboard, there was no mouse. Right? I guess it's hard to imagine any computer without mouse today. I shifted to computer science with the curiosity I had built while working with IBM 360, and I started my PhD. Whenever Bush had written an article, this was in 1985 when I started my PhD, and whenever Bush had written an article in 1945, which was As We May Think, it is in a magazine called The Atlantic. This really inspired me, and I was reading this article 40 years later, and it's still relevant. This article was about, this was published around the time when Hiroshima and Nagasaki had experienced atomic bombs. So he was quite disturbed, and he was concerned that how come scientific efforts are directed towards destruction. So he kind of envisioned that we should have a collective memory device where we could collect knowledge, all the scientific knowledge, and perhaps use it for good purpose. And he envisioned this machine called MEMIX, the short form of memory index. The vision came in 1945, and as you can see, it was something about having that collective knowledge at the desk, right? And this collective knowledge could come from various devices and perhaps a network which is shown under the desk, right? So this was a great story, a great article, and it inspired me. Later, MEMIX became the, it influenced the development of hypertext, which you see today. I was also closely following, and I still follow, MIT Media Lab, Linden Lab, or Palo Alto Research Center. Typically, PARC has given us many great technologies, including Ethernet, laser printers, graphic user interface, object-oriented paradigm, and so many other things. Right. I bought my first computer in 1986, and this is how it looked. Incidentally, I used internet also first time in the same year. This computer had 120K RAM, and it was good enough at that time. Right? It didn't have a mouse, if you notice. Right? I used 8-inch floppy for storage, followed by 5¼ and then 3½. Some of you might have seen 3½ in your life, or maybe not. As the size reduced, the capacity increased, which is true for processors as well. Storage technology has seen quite a few changes. You have seen thumb drive, you have seen CD-ROMs, you now see cloud. And many of you would be telling your grandchildren, oh, it was very cumbersome and heavy to carry this thumb drive till cloud came along. I first time used mouse when I shifted to Singapore in 1990. Singapore gave me that advantage where everything was just available the day it was announced. So I got to use mouse, and it didn't look like the mouse you have nowadays. In fact, it had 2 or sometimes 3 buttons on it. But today we can't imagine a computer without mouse. I used pager. This was my first communication device here. When somebody could call, I could get the number and know that I have to call back. And followed by the non-smartphones and PDAs. And after that, I think all of you, and that's in your generation now, where you have smartphones and you have Facebook and you have Twitter and you have all kinds of other devices to communicate, right? So communication is perhaps going to change to augmented reality in future. Right. What next? Computers are going to invade our lives, definitely continue to invade our lives, and communication, as I said, would take on the form of augmented reality. If I have to pick one technology from here and say which is going to be the future, which I won't see in my lifetime, is cognitive computing. Cognitive computing is something where you envision a machine to act like a brain. So it not only can think, it can learn, and to the point that it can ask questions. Right? So once it asks questions to us, it's kind of frightening as well as exciting to having such kind of learning machines around us. Right? You have to imagine that situation. It's unimaginable at present, but maybe in another 20 years of time, you would start seeing that. Right? And then perhaps if you are going to be agent of this change, and I invite you and I encourage you to be part of this change, then you will have a breathtaking story for your grandkids. In any case, cognitive computing is going to come. So you will definitely have a story for your kids or grandkids that when daddy and mommy were kids, their computers could not think. Thank you.